The new Strawberry Watermelon Refresher is now at McDonald's. It's made with strawberries and a whole lot of whimsy. It's one of many new drinks now at McDonald's.
Refreshers contain caffeine.
The Disney Plus Hulu HBO Max bundle. The best in entertainment in one bundle. This month, stream Disney and Pixar's blockbuster family favorite, Hoppers, on Disney Plus.
This is incredible!
FX's critically acclaimed The Bear, Season 5 on Hulu.
Everything's either going to be okay
or not.
And Season 3 of the HBO original series, House of the Dragon, on HBO Max.
You have power within your grasp.
Get the Disney Plus Hulu HBO Max bundle today. All of these and more streaming soon. Plan starting at $19.99 a month. Terms apply. Visit Disney Plus Hulu Max Bundle.com for details.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast with your hosts, Kyle Borganoni and Matthew Betz.
Welcome in. It's Friday, June 5th here. Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast. I'll be your host today, Kyle Borganoni, and I'm joined, as always, by Matthew, not as spry as he used to be, Betz.
You know what, Kyle? It is early June. We're wrapping up OTAs. Minicamp comes up soon. And then in July, we get training camp. And there are several players in the NFL who are at or near the best shape of their life.
Yes.
3 weeks ago, I may have been there. I am slowly fading, limping to the finish line, ready for this stinking race to be over and just get some energy back. But hey, you know what? We press on. That's what caffeine was made for. And we got best ball to talk about today, so I'm excited, man.
Yeah, we'll talk about some of the updates we have in our rankings, which usually in this portion of the year, you don't really have to update much, but we've had some NFL action. We'll talk about that. And then we'll talk about a couple of different categories related to stacking. We'll give you some data from this past year, and then talk about some of our favorite stacks when it comes to high-end ones. Of course, we're going to bring up value stacks. It wouldn't be a show if we didn't talk about the word value and emphasize it over and over and over again. A couple stacks that we're staying away from. And then when you're in your draft, who is somebody that just you can just say, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to show anyone my roster that I'm completing the stack, but this is a dirty, dirty team that I'm going to complete my stack with. So we'll talk about some of those today. I realize this part of the calendar for you and I is really, really busy in terms of family stuff and kids and birthdays and stuff. So like there is like a grind right now on the personal level where like my kids are in baseball tournaments, both my kids have birthdays, your girls are in the same boat, but we press on.
We do, Kyle. It's a busy week in the Betz household. My wife's birthday was yesterday on the 4th, so shout out to her. She's amazing. Hopefully she's listening, so I get brownie points for this. And then
she will not be listening.
She doesn't subscribe. I mean, come on. And then the twins were hosting their 4th birthday party on Saturday. Their actual birthday is Sunday. We're going to do a little family event. So it should be an awesome, awesome weekend. Really, really wild to think about the fact that they're 4 years old already. They basically were born when the best ball boom started. So I think
they started it.
They were there the whole time. You tell me. I think about the days of early dad life, you know, trying to figure out A, how to keep this human alive, or both humans alive, B, sleep deprived, and just sitting there on the app, you know, baby in one hand, phone in the other. That's what best ball really is all about, if we're being honest. So it'll be a good weekend, man. I'm excited to celebrate with the family.
Yeah, a lot of the data that I have to reference when I talk about best ball is I have stuff all the way back to 2015. That was a different game of best ball. If you played back then, best ball 10s was a lot of the, you know, the data that we have. And then the underdog era since 2021, that's kind of like the era that your girls live in. Like when they talk about this years from now, when they reference, you know, which generation, they'll say, oh, I was in the underdog best ball era.
That's the era I grew up in, underdog best ball.
I did want to get your take on a couple of changes we had to make in the rankings. And as I referenced earlier, this is a dead period in terms of the NFL news cycle, usually. And yet you were hit in the stomach with a trade when you knew the A.J. Brown one was eventually going to go through. Then we had the Myles Garrett one. So I want to touch on those two things in a couple of ways. First, let's talk about how we changed our best ball rankings. And then let's talk about the Rams, and their win total, something we brought up on the NFC episode a couple weeks ago, and do things shift? So rankings updates with A.J. Brown, Eagles, how did that fall out for you?
Yeah, this is a good reminder, I think, just in general, a blanket statement on any news you can anticipate. Like, we as drafters always assume it's baked into the cost, it's baked into the current ADP, and it never is, right? Like we talked about that a while back when I mentioned I'm drafting my A.J. Brown teams as if Drake May is his quarterback. And that was a month and a half ago. Like, the writing was on the wall that this was probably going to happen, and then it officially did. And now, I don't know about you, Kyle, but in the drafts I've done, I've seen A.J. Brown go routinely in the second round. I've actually seen him go early second round a couple times. This morning I was in a DraftKings draft. He went 14th overall. So it's never baked in. It really never is. Like, when Keenan eventually signs, he's going to rise. Like, these things will happen. And similar too, like when we get the final news of hey, this player's starting training camp on PUP, they'll fall more than you think. So the market never really appropriately bakes in some of this stuff. I do think we're getting better as drafters on the whole, with that outcome, but he will move. So I was kind of shocked, honestly. Like, I'm very excited about the target share he's going to see. I think he's motivated to go out and prove some people that it wasn't his fault and all that sort of things. And I think Drake May is going to pepper him. So I don't want to fade him, but at the same time, it's mid-second, early second is a tough price for me. I moved him up 2 overall spots in the ranks, and at the same time bumped Devonta Smith up a couple of spots in the ranks. But really, I didn't move a ton on this news, like I said, because I was kind of already factoring this in pre-June 1st anyway. So I've had plenty of exposure to A.J. Brown in the third round. I'm cool with that. I don't know if I'm going to chase him up the board, though, in these next couple of months.
Yeah, I'm looking at what we did with him. Drake May, we've kind of always been ahead of market. So I don't know, that's just our stance on May over the last couple of years, just liking the player, liking the rushing upside. So we have A.J. Brown right now as our 23rd overall player, and there's a chance he ends up going closer to 20, 21, just the way that people are going to be drafting. I look at Devonta Smith as our bigger takeaway, that we've kind of been really bullish, really far ahead of market. He's wide receiver 13 right now on Underdog. What if I told you I have him as a top 10 wide receiver?
Do you have him as wide receiver 10?
Yeah.
Technically, it still applies, so that's a good call. Yeah, I've got him wide receiver 12, so we're kind of right there together. He's our consensus 11th player at wide receiver. So yeah, if you're making me pick which one I'll have more exposure to, just from a cost perspective relative to our ranks, it'll probably be Devonta Smith.
And then really the big news is, I actually had to move up a player a spot in my rankings because there was news today. You probably didn't see, it's under the radar, but Lions rookie wide receiver Kendrick Law tore his ACL. And so it opens up opportunity for Greg Dortch, man. He went up to, check my rankings. He's at 367 now in my rankings.
You're so mean. You're such a bully, dude. Just when Greg Dortch is 3,300 on DraftKings.com in week 16 or week 17.
That means somebody got hurt on the Lions.
Somebody's out and we're playing him in cash. If you back out of that, I'm going to make fun of you so hard. You're such a bully, A. B, we still have a bet going on. Listeners are probably aware of this, that Greg Dortch needs to last in the NFL, I think, one more season after this year. Is that right?
He has to be on an NFL roster at the start of next season.
Okay, so this is your opportunity here.
And by next season, I mean 2027.
Correct. He has to get through this year and then get another contract somewhere. So this is opportunity here, Kyle. Greg Dortch. I mean, that's my guy.
Yeah, I just love that we're reacting to that news and what it means for Greg Dortch. It's the typical, what does this mean for Marlon Mack? For us, what does it mean for Greg Dortch? But the bigger question I have is about the Rams. You and I were pretty bullish coming on that NFC win totals episode, saying, oh man, we're going to take the under. And here we are in the ring against the team that's favored to win the Super Bowl. They trade for Myles Garrett. We get punched in the stomach over and over and over again, thinking, man, are we idiots for taking an under? For betting against Sean McVay and the boys? So one of these questions is from Discord. Purely H-Core asks, are we still in on the under 11.5 wins? And then Run Coach 502 also asked that it moved on FanDuel to plus 110. If it goes to 12.5, would you consider doubling down?
I don't think that it will move to 12.5, but if it would. I probably would consider it. I guess the biggest question for me is like, how much does this actually matter from a wins-loss perspective? Like, all the arguments for the Rams as far as like why we took the under still apply, right? Like, it's still a very top-heavy team. You could argue it's the best top-heavy team we've seen maybe in a very long time. So, like, obviously, if their guys stay healthy and everything clicks, like, this team is going to win a bunch of games and rightfully so, be a contender for the Super Bowl. But at the same time, I still feel like some of the regression concerns are valid, and I still feel like they are, especially offensively, very, very top-heavy. So, for me, you know, I took, when we talked about it, it was minus 120 to the under. I already took that. I'm not going to bet it again, especially after this trade. But if you were somebody that sat out and you were like, I'm not sure, and now you can get it at plus 110. I even see some plus 115s out there in the market for the under 11.5. You know, this bet only has to cash less than half the time for this to be a good wager. So I'm still cool with it personally. I don't know where you stand, but definitely the market has moved. Like, they're down to plus 500 in some spots to win the Super Bowl, which is kind of crazy. But I understand it. I mean, Myles Garrett is Myles Garrett, right? And they were already good before him, so I get it.
I always cringe when something comes across my timeline. I wish I probably could just end the sentence there. Just anything on my timeline.
Anything related. That would be apply to so many different things.
Oh man. By the way, if you're listening, you're probably muted. I muted myself. I've muted everybody.
You muted me, didn't you?
I just can't. I don't like to see stuff. I don't want to see stuff. But when I see stuff on my timeline, it says this team is now the Super Bowl odds-on favorite, and it's like, so this is basically them telling me the sentiment has moved in this direction. That is it. That doesn't mean that they will be. It just means the sentiment has moved, and in such a way where people think this has moved the needle that much more. And that's really the conversation, is basically how much better is Myles Garrett than Jared Verse? That's part of the equation here. And then how much better is this team from a structural standpoint for using their first round pick the way that they did? That's like they're trying to mid it, right? They're trying to mid this thing in a couple different ways. And obviously they made some trades at cornerback with Trent McDuffie. I want to walk through their schedule with you because I still think the under is the play that I'd like to, if I'm just baking in outcomes of if Puka or Stafford get hurt, would you say this team is toast? And by hurt, meaning they're out more than like 3 games.
I was going to say, it depends how many games they'd miss. But yeah, if they're out for a month plus, like, sure, Ty Simpson could come in and stabilize the ship for a little bit. But yeah, Stafford, MVP caliber quarterback, right? Like, you're not going to just replace that. So yes, that's true. And behind Puka and Devontae, they really don't have legit options. They've kind of built their team right in a way where they're going to be very tight end focused and run a ton of the heavy personnel sets that they were so good at last year. But at the same time, the plane is built out of Puka and Matthew Stafford. And so if those guys miss time, I would be shocked if they could win 13 games.
Right. And part of the exercise for win totals is not saying, yes, this team could win 14 games. Like,
I'm
not
undefeated, Kyle.
No, I don't think so. But
okay.
Sorry, my range of outcomes brain right now is going through their schedule, and I'm going to walk through it with you. And usually what you and your buddies do is you go win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. I just want you to say if there's a game in there where you go, okay, well, that's a coin flip, or, oh, that one might be more dangerous than we realize. Okay, so Week 1 is against San Francisco. They're 2.5-point home favorites.
Coin flip.
That's a coin flip. And that's what I just want to throw that out there. We're starting off the season with a coin flip. They face the Giants Monday night, Week 2, 8.5-point favorites.
Feel good about that.
Yep. At Denver in Week 3, they are 2.5-point favorites, and that line will change.
Coin flip.
Yep. At Philly in Week 4.
Loss. Coin flip.
Buffalo at home Monday night, Week 5.
Coin flip.
Okay, so we're starting the season off with 4 of their first 5 games that we would generally say are a coin flip.
I mean, a field goal in the NFL is nothing, right?
Yes.
And the lines will shift if we get injury news in August or, whatever happens the week before, market reacts. But anything less than a field goal in the NFL is literally nothing, because one possession at the end of the game or, a missed extra point or whatever it is, it just changes everything.
Yeah. I think if they went 3-2 in those first 5 games, that's like a really good sign. But like anything more than 3-2 would actually kind of shock me. just from just how the parity works in the NFL. So I just bring up those first 5 games to say, I think in season the line will change in that first little bit. And when you start getting those live win totals, that's when you and I usually like to attack most. If you're really bullish on the team, that's fine. And if it's at 11.5, you feel different. But like, we're not taking it over
in the year 2026.
That's what people are now implying, is there value on an over now that things have changed? It's like, no, we're not going to change on that part.
No, and I think really what this comes down to is the beginning and the end of the schedule for the Rams is really where it's so tough. Like, you get to week 5, we just talked about those games, then it lightens up a lot. You know, you get Arizona and Las Vegas back to back. You get Arizona again in week 10. Okay, Chargers we think are going to be good. Washington takes a little bit to kind of see it, but like then you get after the bye week, and this is a team that's already veteran heavy with a late bye week in week 11. They come out of their bye and down the stretch, it's Green Bay, Kansas City, San Francisco, Dallas, Seattle, Tampa, Seattle again. And that's going to be a gauntlet to get through late in the season. So I think it's going to come down to the wire. Like, I think they probably win 10, 11, 12 games. And so you're going to be sweating in week 17 and 18, but that's kind of what makes this stuff so fun.
Yeah. And like the Rams, I get why they're Super Bowl favorites.
Oh, for sure.
But we also always bring back this fact of like, the markets in best ball, in redraft, whatever you play, are basically pricing things based on the performance of what somebody did last year. It's what we did with Saquon Barkley in every single format this past year. He just had this historic season. Matthew Stafford just had the best season of his entire career. And this team is being priced as if that's either a norm or he slightly regresses, but we also kind of know there's room. And you look at his entire career, it's been TD rate up, TD rate down, TD rate up. Like, his entire career has been like that. So at the end of the day, I think I just still feel overall fine here. I mean, I feel like a punch in the stomach. I would not be betting any of these odds to win Super Bowl or NFC stuff.
No, and like I said, I think at plus 115, which is on FanDuel and MGM, I think that's still a good look if you haven't already bet it, which I already have. So like, I'm kind of just sitting this one out and letting it go where I have it. But if you haven't and you missed it and you're like, oh, maybe I'll get back in, you're definitely getting a better price. That's for sure.
All right, let's take a quick break and we'll talk about some best ball.
The Disney Plus Hulu HBO Max bundle. The best in entertainment in one bundle. This month, stream Disney and Pixar's blockbuster family favorite, Hoppers on Disney Plus.
This is incredible!
FX is critically acclaimed The Bear, Season 5 on Hulu.
Everything's either going to be okay or not.
And Season 3 of the HBO original series, House of the Dragon on HBO Max.
You have power within your grasp.
Get the Disney Plus Hulu HBO Max bundle today. All of these and more streaming soon. Plan starting at $19.99 a month. Terms apply. Visit Disney Plus Hulu Max Bundle.com for details.
Grainger knows when you're a procurement manager for an office park, you're not managing one building. You're managing all of them. And to stay ahead, you need to see through walls and around corners. Lights about to fail, filters ready to clog, HVAC on its last leg. If you wait until something breaks, you're already behind. Count on Grainger for quality products, easy reordering, and 24/7 support. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
All of our rankings, you can find them in our Best Ball Primer, Best Ball Rankings in the Ultimate Draft Kit Plus app. I was going through it earlier, looking through some of the names, making sure I move them around. So I just want to make sure before we get into the segment, you understand everything we're talking about, all of the blurbs, our differences, ADP. You can find them in the app. But let's go.
Best Ball Bonanza.
All right, we're going to give a couple of stacking related thoughts before we get into team specific stuff. But I was thinking about when we've done this show over the years, we always have an episode where we talk about different stacks. And now I almost feel like I'm preaching to a group of people like, please do not tell me once again what stacking is. It's commonplace. And even like in redraft or dynasty circles, it's like, oh, I've got the stack or I have this team stack. So I really don't need to sit here and like explain like, hey, you have this player from this team combined with another player. My question for you is like, how normal is it when you're in a draft room? You just completed a draft right before this to see that like, hey, the people are all doing this, 10 people out of 12. Like, where's it at for you most of the time?
I think it depends on the site you play. If you're...
Oh, you're saying you get to bully a little bit.
I mean, come on, Kyle. If you are drafting on the site known as DraftKings.com between the hours of approximately 9 p.m. to midnight, you will see some wild stuff from our friends over there. On Underdog, it's a very sharp room, generally speaking, most of the time. In the rare instance on DraftKings, you get in a room, and it's so funny that this is the case, but when you get in a room and like people are acting normally through the first like 4 rounds, you're like, okay, my team might be dead. Because like in the Millie and in this, the $3.20 max and some of the huge contests they have, because of how many dead teams are being drafted in those contests, if you're in a normal room that's just like everybody stacking, pretty close to ADP, not taking Josh Allen 8th overall, like, you're kind of behind the 8 ball in those large contests. So when you see normal stuff happen in the first 5 rounds, you're like, dang it, I got a cool normal room. So genuinely, like, this is part of what we play is to get soft action. I've been drafting more on DraftKings the last 2 years because of that reason, because folks over there aren't stacking as often. And when I say that, I don't mean like it's so rare to find people stacking. I just mean you will find at least 1 or 2 drafters in your room almost every single time that's like, buddy, what are we doing here? So in general, it's still very, very common, but depending on the site you play, there is still an edge, which sounds crazy because to all of us, like if you're listening to a show in June about stacking in best ball, like clearly you get it, you understand it. You're one of the sickos like us in our small bubble. This is all normal. And this is like, oh, duh, I should do this. But that's not the case for every single person that logs on again at 9 o'clock at night to draft over there. So on Underdog, it's very, very, very common. And I would say on DraftKings, it's very common, but you will still see some weird stuff. And so there's still an edge even after all these years.
I would say that you're going to see at least 10 to 11 teams on average that complete a stack. But really the conversation we're going to have more today is about teams and team-based stacks so that, yes, you want the quarterback of this team because you're saying if these options crush or if this one group does what they're supposed to do, then the entire team hopefully can rise as well. But we look a lot at team-based stuff. The running back 1 on this team and the wide receiver 2 is a team-based stack. You're saying this team can eat, and these 2 options might be undervalued, and people may not realize that they can put these 2 together. Just because everybody is stacking doesn't mean that everyone's winning when they're doing it, right? And I'll go through some numbers of this past year because a lot of the times you're going to find the quarterback 1 and the wide receiver 1 pairing as being part of the checklist that people complete. Hey, I've drafted this wide receiver early. I'm making sure in my queue, I have the quarterback queued up later so that I can complete this stack. And you can look at maybe the highest end outcome for some of these guys and the lowest end. And I think Burrow and Chase is a really good example because we've kind of known that is the stack. And when it hits, it hits. In 2024, if you had that stack, the advance rate was close to 60%. Which is just crazy to say because of those 2 players. And obviously you need to make other picks. You absolutely crush. I mean, like absolutely destroyed. Last year, if you had those 2, you took Chase at 101 or 102 and Burrow around pick 60, that advance rate was less than 7%. So that actually killed your team. And I wanted to bring that up because having a stack does not mean that you're therefore successful. You actually need other pieces in that stack, especially cheaper ones to come through. And that's really where you get the advance rates. You find the guys cheaper that you're adding to a team stack so that you're not just having 2 guys from a team. You and I usually say like, I want 3 to maybe 5.
Yeah, and that's all cost related, right? Like I'm trying to think of a good example for this year, but it's hard to like the Bears are a good example. Like we all think they're going to be good, but it's hard to get like a deep Bear stack because all the pieces you want, whether it's Burden or Odunze or Mr. Loveland, or even Swift, all go so close to Caleb. Like they're all in the same range of the draft. So you can't really triple stack Caleb this year unless you're willing to draft like whoever the wide receiver 3 is later on or throw a dart on Cole Kmet for some reason on like round 20 DraftKings. Like otherwise there is no value with the Bears. And so when I think about what that team has to do to pay off relative to ADP in those stacks compared to somebody else like, maybe you're into the Titans this year, just hypothetically speaking.
Maybe you brought them up on every episode. Maybe you're one of those guys.
Maybe. You can tack on a second or third piece super cheap, and the expectation for that stack is obviously way less than what it is for a team that's going super, super early. So that's always something to consider. But the data you shared about the quarterback one and the wide receiver one from last year specifically was wild to me. And talking through it pre-show, we were both kind of like, okay, it's so natural, right? Like, I'm in a draft, I got CD. The next thing most people do, and I found myself doing this too, is not considering, okay, where am I at in round 2? Who's going to be my next pick? Before that happens, sometimes I will queue up Dak. And it's just like a psychological thing. It's like, I took CD, so now I have to take Dak. Or, I took Puka, so I'm going to put Stafford in the queue. Right. And that's not wrong necessarily, but I do think some of this data kind of shows like not every CeeDee Lamb team needs to be a Dak team. Not every Puka team needs to be a Stafford team. And that's just kind of like counterintuitive in some ways, but also at the same time, like you were talking about pre-show, and I'll let you share some of the data, the leverage you get on the field in some of these contests is massive when you are somebody that is taking the wide receiver in isolation, and perhaps you have quarterbacks that are cheaper that match or exceed your quarterback stack output. The wide receiver can still pay off ADP without the quarterback, which again, you want to be stacking. So I'm not saying don't ever stack these guys, but just that quarterback one, wide receiver one, like auto drafts, in our head that we get into. Sometimes I think you can overdo it.
Yep. Let me give you an example on the other end of the spectrum, because last year, JSN was a league-winning pick for everybody. He was going around pick 30, 31 overall. But Sam Darnold was one of those guys who were like, man, they paid this money. Technically, it's just a one-year wait and see. And obviously, they struck gold with that. But we knew JSN was the wide receiver one on that team. We knew that Sam Darnold was their quarterback, and maybe you could have told yourself a story like, oh man, maybe Jalen Milroe sees some snaps, maybe Darnold isn't that good, whatever. But we knew that. So if you were drafting in best ball, you would have stacked JSN with Sam Darnold. However, the field did not do this very much, all right? So in Best Ball Mania, Sam Darnold and JSN were only showing up in 25% of Sam Darnold lineups. Like that combination, that was one of the lowest of any QB1 wide receiver one stacks. On the other end of the spectrum, you brought up Dak and CD. 45% of Dak lineups were stacked up with CD. Now, CD had his injuries, and Dak overall was a pretty good pick. But if you look at JSN and what his advance rate was, it was almost 40%. When you combine him with Darnold, it was 43%. I mean, it was basically like the best possible stack you could get because Darnold was going so late and people weren't expecting it. So I bring that up to say, when you're looking at these stacks and you're looking at some of these players, maybe the biggest cheat code is if you can find the combination going later that can be efficient and you're not even counting on to be your primary stack. Like nobody was counting on Sam Darnold to be their quarterback one. He was QB2 or QB3, and he ended up being kind of like a cheat code for your team in best ball. That's really where you get the most like boost. That's like where your lineups are going over everybody else in your room, because nobody else in these large tournaments are looking at these stacks and looking at them in a way that they could elevate your entire team.
Yeah, for sure. I can like vividly remember times last year where I'd be drafting and I'm like, I need a quarterback 3. I guess I'll take Darnold. Yeah, and it was a JSN team, and it's like, I don't know. I guess I was reluctant because I had to take, and obviously I was wrong. I thought he would leave Minnesota and potentially pumpkin a little bit, and he was incredible. And it's like, man, if you're already betting on JSN anyway to break out and be a potential top 12 guy and break fantasy and win Offensive Player of the Year, which he did, it's like, I don't know, Darnold probably matters a little bit in that scenario, right? It's like you're not drafting Jackson Smith and Jigba with like the hopes that it's Jalen Milroe last year, right? Like you needed Sam Darnold to hit. So I think about some of the teams and players that are going in certain ranges this year. We'll talk about some value stacks, but yeah, that really is like the key to best ball every year is, and it's easier to say than do, obviously, but like find the stacking partners that are going later in drafts that are being slept on that have a chance to far exceed the expectation of their draft position. And again, that's very easy to say. It is hard to execute because the market is pretty efficient, but I still think every year there's a team or two that kind of slips through the cracks. Hopefully, Kyle, today, you are going to tell us who that team is this year.
I mean, I've got a couple.
You have a couple?
And I do have a couple and I want to bring up one more here because usually you get the wide receiver one in your draft early on. You're like, okay, so this is the wide receiver one for this team. And then you're queuing up the quarterback. But really, we're thinking teams first. So I got to bring up the Chargers because I always bring up the Chargers. Ladd McConkey last year was going as like 20th overall, which is kind of wild to think about right now, but 20th overall player. You would have queued up Justin Herbert. 40% of Justin Herbert lineups had Ladd McConkey in them. Okay, that's a pretty high rate. Anything over 33% is a really high rate. But it was only a 15% advance rate. But only 14% of Justin Herbert lineups had Quentin Johnston in it. And Quentin Johnston was a really, really good best ball player and a player that you could have looked at and said, hey, this player, I don't know if he's better than Ladd McConkey, like skill-wise. I think we'd agree. But in the game that we play, and a guy that scores touchdowns, like I don't need Quentin Johnston at 160th overall to be anything more than my wide receiver 6 for my team. So that's like the opportunity cost stuff we always bring up for stacks is like, I want to add on another piece, and I want to add on a piece late that's a part of a team stack so that even those Ladd lineups, like Ladd was pretty much a disappointment last year. If you would have had Ladd, Justin Herbert, and Cuge, which Cuge you could have tacked on late, that would have had a 25% advance rate. And just for reference, anything over 20 is a good season in best ball. So I just want to make sure that we're emphasizing teams first over player takes.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And I think if you've done enough drafts, you'll know the ADP landscape well enough. Like, you kind of get in your routine, you know where players go. Like throughout each round of the draft, as you start to build your team, depending on how you go early, whether it's running back, wide receiver, you get sniped on quarterback, like you just have to kind of know what's waiting for you in the double-digit rounds to understand, can I backstack this quarterback or can I add the second and third piece on? And if you've done enough drafts and you know the ADP, you'll be able to understand that routinely and it'll kind of be like second nature to you. But really just understanding what's available to you late, I think is maybe even more important than your player takes in the first 5 rounds of drafts. Like, because like these are the best players. Like nobody's going to have wild rankings of like, that guy's undraftable in the 5th round. It's like, okay, well, maybe we're a little behind ADP, but like, I'll still take him if he falls. These are the best players. And so really the edge, I think, still comes from knowing what's late in drafts and how you can kind of maximize your stacks with cheap options, because that's really what it takes to get these best ball teams to advance and potentially hit a ceiling, like I said, that nobody really, saw coming.
Yeah, like I'm looking at my rankings right now at the very top. It's like, is there a huge difference between JSN and Amon-Ra? Like, I don't know. Like, sure, if you want to like have this really bullish, like JSN could do this, but also like they're going to be good picks. And really what it comes down to is what you're doing from there and what you're doing. So I did want to list these really quickly. The most common stacks last year in terms of percentage of lineups stacked with a quarterback one and a wide receiver one. So here were the teams that 40% or more of the time, the quarterback one was stacked with the wide receiver one. First up, J.J. McCarthy and Justin Jefferson.
You know what you should have done? Sacked up Justin Jefferson with Carson Wentz. Look up that advance rate, Kyle.
I will look up that one. It's kind of fun.
Nobody drafted Carson Wentz.
I want to find somebody that drafted Carson Wentz. And then it was Herbert and McConkey at 40%. Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr., 40%.
Yikes.
That's painful. Then from there, Justin Fields and Garrett Wilson, 40%. Do you think that that's so high because it's like he's the only pass catcher that people were drafting other than Mason Taylor?
Yeah. We talked about that all summer, right? It's like, who knows who the wide receiver 2 is and does it matter? And the answer in hindsight was, well, not really. And they traded for Eddie Mitchell, which nobody could see coming. So yeah, it was like when you had Garrett Wilson last year, you're like, okay, Justin Fields, put him in the queue.
All right, it's clear 3 people out of this 56,000 subset drafted Carson Wentz with Justin Jefferson.
I would love to interview those 3 people. Like, what happened? Where were you? What choices were you making? That is wild.
Let's just say that they had a 0% advance rate.
Okay, that makes sense.
A couple more here. 41% Trevor Lawrence and Brian Thomas Jr., which had... I looked this up. Over the last 5 years, Brian Thomas Jr. had the lowest advance rate of any wide receiver in best ball.
Pain. That'll happen when you're a
4%.
12th or 13 overall pick and you're as bad as you were.
Yep, and when you're booty cheeks like that. Cortland Sutton, Bo Nix, 42%. That one had spike weeks that were really good. Sutton had some touchdowns, but overall was just okay.
But the cost of Sutton last year, right around 50th overall, compared to like Brian Thomas,
yes,
Marvin Harrison, very different,
Nico Collins at 10th overall with CJ Stroud. 44% of Stroud lineups had Nico in it. And Nico was hurt for a little bit. Stroud obviously had a really, really bad year. And then the highest one was Dak and CD, 45% of Dak lineups. That's a lot.
That's a lot, man. And like from a DFS, put your DFS hat on.
The game theory hat that I wear all the time, but I sometimes forget that I'm wearing. Yeah.
Never take it off. Like if you just know that that's likely the case with a lot of these stacks, I'm not saying, and if you're doing a portfolio, it's easier to take this approach. But that's what I was saying earlier. It's like, you just know that if you get some teams through to the finals, and perhaps there's a week where, like, in this example, Dak throws for 250 and, only one touchdown, but like CD got most of that production, your CD team can advance without the Dak stack, which is counterintuitive because, of course, across the entire season, you want that correlation. So that's why best ball is so fun, because there's like different games within the game, and like when you get to the championship rounds and the semifinals and everything, it's such a different kind of thing to think through with your pods. But yeah, just the game theory aspect of being like, everybody is stacking these two guys, right? When you take CD, you queue up Dak. Not every CD team has to be a Dak team. Some of them should be, but not all of them.
Correct. Question before we get into our specific ones. What advice would you give people? This is a question that came up earlier. What advice would you give people about stacking without the quarterback? So in other words, one, should they do it? And how do you attack that in your drafts? Like, hey, I don't have a quarterback, or I was sniped on this quarterback. How should I approach this team?
Yeah, I'm still a huge fan of this. And I think it depends on the teams that you want to make bets on. I think about, for example, one of my most recent drafts, I had the 101, so I took Gibbs. And then I think it was the 5th round, I got Jameson Williams. And I was like, all right, hopefully I can get some Jared Goff here. Of course, he got sniped, but thanks to the Q tag on our friend Sam Laporta on DraftKings, he fell roughly like 15 picks past ADP. And it's like, okay, well, I'm already betting on this offense, right? Like, I'm already betting on Lions being good. If Lions are bad, this team is dead, because I'm already investing 2 top 5 round picks in these guys. I might as well just say, hey, tack on Sam Laporta. And if Jared Goff has a good year, this team will be very good. I hopefully can make up some Jared Goff points with other quarterbacks on my roster, which I believe it was a Kyler team, and I think Bo Nix were the 2 quarterbacks that I had on that roster. It's like, I don't know, hopefully those guys can kind of just match Jared Goff's production at a similar ADP, and I just pivoted and stacked later. So I think this happens every time. Like, there's always a draft where you've got the perfect team set up. You took Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and somebody inevitably will take Joe Burrow. But that's okay.
A naked Joe Burrow.
A naked Joe Burrow. And you are still benefiting from just team is good, Joe Burrow is good, but you can hopefully match or exceed Burrow's expectation from a fantasy scoring perspective from a cheaper option and potentially a cheaper stack. So I'm still a huge fan of it. I think there's still an edge in doing it because, like I said, most people will think this has to be wide receiver quarterback. And I'm not saying don't do that. Obviously, it's a very good thing. But there are times where it works out well if you're just betting on the team to have success.
Think about how you play in your home leagues if you're in a one quarterback. Quarterback is pretty much the most replaceable position, one of the most replaceable other than defense kicker, where we are streaming quarterbacks all the time. Like it's actually kind of easy, and people like JJ Zacharyson have made a whole career out of talking about this. Like, you can replace the position, and same thing at quarterback. There's a reason why Jared Goff is huddled with all these other dudes in around pick 100 is because, like, what's the big difference between Jared Goff and Justin Herbert or Brock Purdy or any of these guys, Caleb Williams? They're all very, very similar. So if you miss out on somebody like that, you can still be able to make it up elsewhere. Buy into the team, buy in their game totals, all the stuff that we talk about all the time. You can make sure you do that. All right, let's. Where do I even have this stupid drop? Dang it! Of all the episodes, I don't have a stack attack drop.
Kyle, what is this, amateur hour?
I deleted it out the other day for like one of these other really, really dumb drops.
Duval.
Like one of those, or like
Bud Liquor, our prices have never been lower.
Or like,
It's not worth winning if you can't win.
those are the drops that I think people really, really care about. But you and I are going to go through a couple categories here, and hopefully these will give you some stacks that we have higher exposure to, right? Like ones that we're looking at and saying, hey, in your drafts, we're trying to get multiple pieces. Hopefully it's the quarterback, but like, I'm fine with 3 pieces and the quarterback's not there because I think there's just a lot of value in these teams. I want to bring up a high-end stack that you and I somehow stumbled into both being on, okay? And I'm trying to give a sponsor to each one of these categories, the high-end stacks. This one's going to be sponsored by none other than the Don Julio Margarita, which at your local Chili's, is there anything that tells your waiter or waitress that you are a high roller more than that?
When I complete this, hopefully complete the stupid Ironman Sunday night, dude, I am going right to Chili's and just down in one marg and falling asleep. But that marg is going to be so good. So yeah, this is, if you're talking about like, I can only have one stack this year, presented by Don Julio Margs from Chili's, and not just any Don Julio Marg, okay? It can't be like one you made at home. It's got to be from your like local neighborhood Chili's.
Hey, with Truman, my youngest, his all-star team, they went out the other day.
I thought you were about to say, hey, I went out for Margs with my youngest Truman.
When I having Margs with my 6-year-old.
It's like, Kyle, isn't he in like first grade?
We went out to dinner with his entire like all-star team to this Mexican restaurant, and we all got Margs, all the parents, and we were coconut margarita. It was very good.
Oh, that sounds actually very refreshing.
It was great. But the team that is our high-end stack presented by Don Julio Margaritas is the Detroit Lions, who you brought up earlier. You and I both are pretty firm about Gibbs and Amon-Ra being first-round picks. We're not going to really argue about them. Everybody's going to be having them in the draft. I think it's how this team sets up like the rest of the way. They are favored in 14 of their first 15 games. And when you play indoors like that, like there's just a lot of matchups that we know we want to hit. So I feel like this team is one that we were out on last year, in on this year. And I think Sam Laporta might be one of my favorites. Like I was looking at his price tag. Like this is the cheapest we've had since his rookie year.
Yeah, he's interesting because normally he's like in that range where it's, generally speaking, those bets are kind of iffy, right? Like the tier 2 to tier 3 type guys at tight end historically have been kind of a swing and a miss. But I do feel like there's still an upside case for Laporta, and perhaps it's injury contingent, right? Like if Amon-Ra happens to miss a couple games or JMO, we should see his usage spike. But just if you're betting on the offense, I don't mind tacking him on where he goes. And like I said, right now, because he's coming off of a back procedure from last year, he does have the Q tag over on DraftKings. So if you're playing there, you often will get him past ADP, which I've done a couple times this week. It's really just buying into an offense that we already know is very, very good. We think that they will get positive variance on the offensive line from an injury perspective. You mentioned the dome setup. And really what it comes down to for me is just the easiest schedule in the league. And it's like, man, give this offense easy matchups, and I think good things are going to happen. So I'm with you. Obviously, they have a couple of very expensive pieces, so they have to be very good to pay this off. But I do like that Jared Goff kind of goes where he goes. Right now, it's like quarterback 16-ish. That seems totally doable for a guy who routinely is finishing inside the top 12 with the position and gives you spike weeks. Like we think about some of these quarterbacks and pocket passers where it's like, we think that the upside isn't really there. That's not the tag I would label with Jared Goff. But like, man, there are some games where if the Lions are putting up 28 points, 30 points, like Jared Goff is part of the equation. So I looked up the passing touchdown props on DK just for comparison's sake. Joe Burrow leads the way at 32.5. Stafford's at 30.5. Next in line, Jared Goff, 29.5. So like the market is basically saying like touchdown expectation is there. And yet he goes way behind where Burrow goes. And that's different from a median projection versus a range of outcomes. But just the point remains, I think there's ceiling with Jared Goff in this offense if things click.
Yeah, over the last 3 or 4 years, there's only been 3 quarterbacks that have finished the top 10 in position. Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Jared Goff. And I think of all the formats that you could play him in your home league, he feels like one of those like, okay, I'm going to stream him in a home matchup that I really like. But like, that there are certain matchups where you don't want to play Jared Goff. He's a D in our consistency in terms of like percentage of time he's given you 18 plus points. And then in like Dynasty, it's like, okay, he's fine. In DFS, we're like, okay, Jared Goff, if the price is okay, but he's usually kind of priced up and he doesn't run. I feel like best ball is like the format for him. And at QB 16, I love paying that price. I don't need him to be my quarterback one.
For sure. Yeah, and I think there's some builds too where like you can kind of just double dip in this quarterback 10-ish to like 20 range and be done.
I feel like with Sam Laporta, I walk through the tight ends, I walk through the range of outcomes or projections, all that stuff. I feel like he's one of the few that I could say like, man, if he ended up with 10 plus touchdowns, that wouldn't shock me at all.
No, that wouldn't shock me either.
And it's rare to be able to say that. Like, you go through some of the other guys, you go, okay, well, that's a volume guy. So that pairing alone, like Laporta and Goff, I feel like is really good in best ball. I've talked about Isaiah Pacheco a couple episodes saying he's too cheap. We used to pay a much higher price. His price has gone up. I don't know if you knew that.
Moving the lines.
I think it's like up 6 picks or something.
Technically still true. No, I do love that call too. Like if you're not the Gibbs team, let's say you're the Amon-Ra team, and you went Amon-Ra, Laporta, Goff. It's like, well, you're already betting on this offense. Like, just tack Pacheco on, 3 rounds later or whatever it is.
Yeah, and think about how unique you will have. Like, nobody's going to have Gibbs and Amon-Ra on the same team. It's impossible. It won't happen based on just how the format works. You can get different. I do want to ask about Jameson, though. Where are you at? 48th overall, wide receiver 24. He's the rich man's Christian Watson, who Christian Watson is the expensive Quentin Johnston.
Christian Watson is very rich.
He's very rich, but like he's not rich in terms of fantasy points.
We'll see. I like JMO. He's in the bucket of the range of wide receivers that I love to attack this year. Like any of these guys that go from kind of like wide receiver like 18-ish to like wide receiver 36. Like I'm taking a lot of these guys, so I'm mixing them in. I don't have a strong take one way or the other.
Okay, I'm looking at my rankings right now. Like I'm at market. I'm not afraid, but I feel like he's just one of those players that like if he's there, he's there. He's where all the Bears are too. I feel like I get really confused in that part of the draft who I should prioritize. It's like I like Rome, I like Luther Burden. Mike Evans is right there. There's a bunch of guys in that range that all feel similar, but if I have one of Gibbs or Brown, I am tacking on Jameson. I did want to bring up one point about Sam Laporta, that his splits with Jameson Williams on and off the field are the exact same. Jameson Williams' splits are not the exact same when Laporta is on the field. So that is something that, like, so far when Laporta is playing, it's hurt Jameson Williams.
Yeah, from the volume perspective. We'll see if that changes this year. Like, we're another year into the Jameson kind of out of the doghouse era that happened a few years ago. And I think Dan Campbell saw last year what was happening with JMO and was like, this is not an option. Like, we need to prioritize this guy. So I would not be surprised if his usage, not necessarily is sticky, but is better than it has been historically with Laporta in the lineup.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
It's my first day of work, and I need to make a big impression.
From executive producer Mindy Kaling.
This is our sexual harassment training. Hands off your coworkers. Now sign this saying that I trained you, or you're fired. Yes, ma'am. Work relationships are too messy.
I just met the woman of my dreams.
You gotta chill out and not come on too strong.
That goes against my entire personality, but I'll try.
Watch Not Suitable for Work now streaming on Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus for bundle subscribers. Terms apply.
Grainger knows when you're a procurement manager for an office park, you're not managing one building, you're managing all of them. And to stay ahead, you need to see through walls and around corners. Lights about to fail, filters ready to clog, HVAC on its last leg. If you wait until something breaks, you're already behind. Count on Grainger for quality products, easy reordering, and 24/7 support. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
From talking about high-end stacks that we like, let's go to value. Obviously sponsored by Wendy's. And I have a question for you. When is the last time that you had some Wendy's in your life? And I know that, you're on this little train that you're about to just completely just jump off. I mean, the train is moving and you are going to be completing your half Ironman and then free fall.
I may never move again on the couch for the next 3 months.
When's the last time you had Wendy's?
Dude, honestly, I can't even tell you.
Are you mad about that?
It's honestly been years.
Years?
At least 5.
Oh my gosh.
We don't eat fast food.
Okay, that's fair. Wendy's is like the perfect, we didn't have dinner before baseball practice.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to say we had Wendy's like 3 weeks ago.
Last night.
Picked it up. No, man. Not last night, but I get it. I like taking stands. I'm a contrarian person. I once went 15 years without eating Taco Bell.
Another one. I mean, maybe in college is like the last time.
I had Taco Bell my freshman year of college, and then my friends had this party at their house and they said, hey, what if we all got Taco Bell tonight? And I was like, man, I haven't had Taco Bell in a long time. So he just ordered it and it got sent to the house.
Living Kyle. Livin, baby.
So 15 years between Taco Bell. Value stacks really comes down to, I look at this team, they're not as expensive in the places that they should be. And that all can add up to a team that has really good advance rate. And I have the 49ers down. I want to see if you agree with me or not. Christian McCaffrey is obviously expensive, 7th overall. If you want to have a take on CMC, if this is a healthy year or not, be my guest. But from there, this team is pretty cheap considering that they have the 7th highest average implied total in the league, the 9th highest average game total, and their quarterback, like, if I look at all the teams in the NFL that are projected for 10.5 wins or more by Vegas sportsbooks, all of them have a top 20 wide receiver. All of them have a top 12 quarterback, except for the 49ers and Packers. So I feel like there's a good buying opportunity for Purdy in that range we were just talking about, this kind of QB 8 to 15 range. I feel like he's perfect there. And then I feel like we're almost paralyzed by the pass catchers of like, I don't know what to do with Pearsall. Kittle's hurt, so he kind of just slips in drafts and I never end up taking him. But I feel like there's a buying opportunity through the passing game. And then even more important, if you want to take a stab at the RB2 with your last pick, there is massive value, obviously, if CMC went down, but also we just don't know who it is. Is it Kalen Black or is it Jordan James? And we might find that out next month. But if you want to take a stab in round 18, you say Jordan James is going to be the guy, even though he's never touched the football in the NFL, go for it. But I like this team from a value standpoint.
Yeah, they are tricky because on one hand, last year felt so right, being like, everybody was so worried about Christian McCaffrey. Remember coming out of 2024, and you and Mike were like insanely bullish on him, and I was like, well, if these guys are in, like, I'm not going to be an idiot, you know? So last year being in on McCaffrey and fading some of that noise was one of the sharpest moves I thought of the season. Obviously, he's another year older, coming off that insane workload. And so I'm not full fading him, but I'm not prioritizing McCaffrey the way I was previously. But that doesn't mean I don't think the Niners will be good and that there's an opportunity. I think Mike Evans is fine where he goes. I'm a little behind market. It's just guys changing teams at this stage of their career, coming off another injury-plagued season, historically has not been a great bet. Generally, it doesn't mean it won't work out. It's just kind of how I play. And then with Pearsall, like, I'm kind of into Pearsall.
I have him as a top 100 player, and I was looking at my rankings like, am I saying I'm really into Ricky Pearsall?
I think Mike Evans is very good for him. Like, he's obviously dealt with a bunch of injuries, and we're not really sure. Like, I still don't know at this stage of his career because of the injuries and off the field stuff, and like, getting shot days before the season started 2 years ago. Are we even really sure that we know how talented this player is? I don't know, but I do think that having Mike Evans there to play the role he will allow Kyle Shanahan to move Ricky Pearsall all over the formation and kind of use him in a different way that they were trying to last year when he kind of had to be the guy because of some injuries on the roster. So I actually am into Pearsall, and sometimes what I've done is, like, if it is a CMC team and I don't get Evans, like, I'm like, all right, that's fine. I can get Purdy and Pearsall, just kind of double tap there later on because their ADPs are so close. I'm waiting on Kittle. I think he's fine for like the late season outcomes that could happen off the Achilles. It's just early on. I'm not obviously projecting him to be healthy. But as far as the RB2 is concerned, for me personally, I'm just waiting. Just wait until camp, until seeing what we're going to get. None of these guys are going to move unless we get like definitive news in minicamp that's like, this is the RB2, which I don't think we're going to get. So I'm waiting on that situation, but I don't mind later in August or something tacking that guy onto your stack.
Yeah, it's like you can almost, if you want to, let's say you don't pick McCaffrey, you don't pick Mike Evans. Like, I don't think it's the craziest thing to take Purdy first or take Pearsall and kind of double tap Pearsall Purdy and then find at least one or two other pieces later. So with Kittle, are you just like, hey, I don't do injury stuff?
I don't do that. That's not my thing. I have him, I'm looking at ranks right now, roughly a round and a half behind ADP. So I'm not saying I'm not going to take him ever, but I personally don't like where he goes currently. I'm kind of waiting it out to see if we get a better price.
Yeah, I'm 10 spots behind ADP. So I'm with you when there's other tight ends in that spot. I mean, When you can have players like Mark Andrews ranked ahead of him, you do it.
Got to.
All right, give me a value stack.
All right, last year, you mentioned how bad the Vikings were. And it was horrible. But I'm kind of into it this year. I think a lot of the argument for me when it comes to the Vikings is really just cost, right? Obviously, Justin Jefferson goes where he goes, and that's fine. But if you are a team that's like, hey, I didn't have Justin Jefferson, I keep getting sniped on quarterback, it kind of sets up nicely for some of these Kyler stacks based off the board of where these guys go and their ADPs. So like Jordan Addison, I think is a totally fine upside pick where he goes. And then Kyler, there's still kind of the unknown and the stink of it was a rough couple ending seasons there in Arizona, but just it's in the range of outcomes that he returns to form and he runs. And that's generally the archetype I'm looking for at this cost. So at quarterback 17, I'm into him. And then because of the unknown at running back, and they're all so cheap, Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason, I'm just kind of mixing in here and there. And then if you want a second or third piece to add into the pass catching room, I don't mind Juwan Jennings as your wide receiver, or as the wide receiver 3 on this team, I should say. And then it's gross, but like we're really just touchdown hunting anyway. And so if you are betting on Kyler, Hawkinson as your tight end 2, tight end 3 type, where he goes super, super late, I don't mind. I don't love it, obviously, but just again, besides Justin Jefferson, nobody goes in the top 80 picks on this team. And so that's why I think they're an interesting value if Kevin O'Connell can get the best from Kyler Murray this year.
Yeah, we've been pretty bullish on having Kyler ahead of market and kind of saying like he'll end up probably being one of our highest exposed quarterbacks this year.
And not every Justin Jefferson team is a Kyler team.
That's right.
I'm taking some Justin Jefferson without, but I'm definitely taking some with. And like I said, if you don't have J-Jets and you are looking at the board and you're like, crap, I'm out of stacks, Jordan Addison is right there waiting for you, and you can come back in the next round and get Kyler.
I was talking with Julia, our editor, about different player blurbs in the UDK, and I got to Jordan Mason, and I was like, I don't know if there's a more boring player to give the case for than Jordan Mason. Like I just remember us explaining, we were just walking through different blurb types, and I was like, the Jones Mason, like I get to that point in a draft and I go, I guess I'll take Aaron Jones because Jordan Mason just seems so boring to me.
I generally just side with the pass catching archetype, so I have a little bit more Aaron Jones right now, but on half PPR where it's like touchdown hunting anyway, if Mason could fall in the end zone 7 times this year, that might be enough where he goes.
All right, let's go to overrated stacks. And do you got anything in life that you're like, hey, not a huge fan of, a little overrated?
I know what you would say.
Okay, tell me.
As a grumpy old man, you're not a fan of social media. You hate it. The internet, you hate. Social media,
I'm not a fan of having social apps on your phone. That's very, very true.
Kyle's going to be 60 years old one day, living in the woods, no internet, no cell phone.
Betz did.
Just a landline.
We were talking about AJ Brown stuff, and he's like, hey, did you see this? I go, Betz, I see nothing. I have no clue what anyone is talking about. But yeah, I don't have the apps installed on my phone. And part of that's just like, I don't care.
So yeah, this is presented by
That's great.
Overvalued social media.
Social media. These are teams that we are not willing to pay the ADP admission for. And I don't know how you feel about this, but my rankings have been pretty firm about the Chiefs. They've been pretty firm about Rashee Rice. I'm a stubborn person. You just brought it up. I feel like his price has only continued to go down. And I've even looked at it like, man, can I like still be like behind market on him? Or is there a certain point where like he's a value? He's now at 30th overall. Can you see his price going down further?
I think it's possible. And I think potentially some of this movement of AJ Brown going up, Devonta Smith going up will push him down a little bit further. So I think it's a possibility, but I'd be very surprised outside of more negative news, which is possible with a guy like this, that he's not inside the top 36.
So best ball is a different game and a different conversation than like what I think this player is in the NFL. Like if we're just talking ball, just a couple dudes talking ball. And I look at my rankings, but I did that earlier today. I was looking at where I have Rashee Rice. I'm like, I think Chris Olave is a better wide receiver in the NFL than Rashee Rice, like more complete wide receiver. I think Garrett Wilson is a better wide receiver. I think Emeka Egbuka can be a better wide receiver. All those guys I have ahead of Rashee Rice. And that is very different than where ADP has. But when I look at the rest of this team, we know Patrick Mahomes is coming off an injury. He's not going to run the same way. And you've talked about some of that. I'll look at Xavier Worthy. He's fine around pick 100. It's really hard for me seeing him vault to being like 22% of the targets, aside from Rice being hurt. And then I look at the rest of the roster, and it's like, I don't really know who the RB2 is. I hope it's Emmett Johnson. And I don't really know who the wide receiver 3 is. It feels like a weird team to stack up this year.
It is a weird team because I think it's going to look a lot different. I mean, you kind of think about the way things used to be with Mahomes, where it was this high-flying offense. We were chasing that for like 3 years in a row. And their moves have kind of signaled like that's not what this is going to be, right? Like they went out and finally paid a running back and not just paid top dollar for Ken Walker. There's been multiple reports kind of suggesting they want to protect Mahomes, especially in the first part of the season. And obviously all the money is late in the year, so perhaps Mahomes can have that fantasy ceiling late and spike. But man, it's tough with Rashee Rice and his injury history, and obviously now this off the field stuff, and Travis Kelce is yet another year older, and I think we're going to see a lot of the dink and dunk, low ADOT type stuff. And so much of the value from Mahomes last year for fantasy came because he was doing a lot with his legs. And like you said, with the injury and the recovery off the ACL, I don't think we're going to see that this year. So I'm okay with the Chiefs. Like for me, part of it is just like, man, if I do get boxed out for a stack and I didn't take Ken Walker, I didn't take Rashee Rice, it's like, okay, well, I know Mahomes is here. I can tack on Worthy a little bit later, and Kelce is kind of in no man's land. That's not the worst thing in the world if I'm double stacking those two guys. So I have Mahomes stacks, but I'm not taking a big stand one way or the other.
Okay. And am I just going to I've made my stance on Rashee Rice? Is that where I'm at now? And I just I'm going to be playing against people that took Rashee Rice at the end of round 2.
I think you will see Rashee Rice dip a little further. And then as we get into camp, it's crazy that I'm even saying this, but he's out of jail. You will get positive news, positive reports, and he will slowly come back up. So I think there will be a sweet spot in the next probably month to get your Rashee Rice exposure and then potentially back off. Okay.
All right. That's cool with me. All right. Which team do you feel like is overrated stacking wise?
Okay. I want to be clear about this. This is price specific only. I do think the Dallas Cowboys will be a very good offense.
They're going to be fun for DFS.
Oh, for sure. But the problem for me is that we talk about this every year, right? It's what did you do last year and let's draft him that way. Last year, you could get George Pickens in the 4th, sometimes 5th round. CD was always the first round pick. Javonte, right? He would go in 110, 120s, sometimes 130s, because nobody knew what the running back room was going to look like. We all thought it would be terrible. And Dak, I think last year was more appropriately priced, where he was going kind of closer to quarterback 10 to 12-ish, closer to pick 100. This year, obviously, CD is still a first-round pick. George Pickens is a fringe round 2, round 3 pick. Javonte's in the top 36, and Dak, I think, is overpriced relative to other quarterbacks on the board. So basically, every meaningful piece of the offense is going in the top 80 picks, and it's just really, really hard for those stacks to pay off at cost. So for me, what I'm doing is kind of what I was doing last year a little bit with the Lions, where it's I'll take a piece here or there, but I'm not trying to go out and full stack this team, because if you're taking 2 or 3 of these pieces inside this top range of the draft, obviously for them to pay off, they have to be not just a good offense, they have to be incredible. And I also think it's kind of, it sounds gross and silly and maybe even stupid to say this out loud, but what if the defense is just better? I mean, they put a ton of resources into it.
I think it will be better.
It can only go one direction after how terrible it was last year. But they obviously put a ton of investment into that side of the ball. What if we just have a few less shootouts? So I think for me, Cowboys, I'll be underweight this year.
Yeah, I was just staring at this team. Pickens, I have lower. Dak is the start of a tier of quarterbacks that I'm comfortable with. That's the problem. Before, Dak was kind of in that QB 12 to 15 range where we used to draft him.
I was drafting a ton of Dak last year.
Yeah, and he was great. But now at about 80th overall, QB 8, we just mentioned there's this entire tier of guys, and I don't want to be the one that has to start it. And I kind of like Jake Ferguson. I think he's fine where he goes. So I wouldn't say I'm 100% out on this team, but I think they are a bit overrated and priced up, especially with 3 guys in the top 36 picks. I have been trying to do a little homework about the RB2 position. I was just earlier today. No big deal. Reading the Fort Worth Star-Telegram.
What'd you find out?
They basically don't know. It really was like people asking for opinion about Jaden Blue and Malik Davis, and they're like, here's what I would do, but also here's what could happen, and also I don't know.
I think they kind of want Blue to take
that
the
was
job.
their takeaway.
But like he obviously made some bad decisions last year and was unreliable and all those things, and so I do think that they have to kind of see him prove it. But we've seen the Cowboys in the past give guys that have no track record of anything in the NFL meaningful roles on the team, and so I wouldn't be surprised if it's Blue or Malik Davis, but this is another RB2 situation that I'm not necessarily drafting right now. When there is so much unknown, I'll wait till training camp.
Is it because Jaden Blue was like a top 140 pick at one point last year?
Man, best ball is the best. I love best ball. Because at the time, it sounded kind of reasonable, right? It's like, I mean, what if? What if? And then hindsight, you're like, oh, that was probably the worst pick on the board.
Yeah, Malik Davis is interesting as like a late round dart throw, but I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to wait and see what happens. All right, last thing. Last little stack. It's called the oh crap, I need a stack. It means like you totally crapped yourself. And what you realize, like, oh my gosh, I'm at the end of my draft and I have one quarterback, or I have two and I want to add a third. What is a team that you can add late that you think there's value there? I'm going to throw out a gross team. I did not think that I would put the Steelers down as a team that I would be actively stacking at all this year. And then I asked the question, what if Mike McCarthy and his brand of football is we play fast and we throw the ball, which is what he did the last couple of years in Dallas. He sat out last year on the couch, just chilling, not doing anything. But the Cowboys, those Cowboys teams he was with the last 2 years, they trailed only the Browns in average total plays and average pass plays. They had a 61% overall pass rate. And if this team is fast-paced and pass-happy, I feel like their prices are too cheap. Just to give you context, DK Metcalf is the wide receiver 37. He is the first Steeler off the board in drafts, which is crazy, going at 76 overall. That is by far the lowest of any team. All 32 teams, their first player off the board. So he's cheap. No one's really thinking about this team in terms of upside. I think there can be spike weeks in the passing game. So I think Jeremy Bernard's really, really cheap if you want to go at the end of your draft. And I don't mind Rodgers as a QB3.
I'm in. It's all cost related, right? It's like the stack does not have to be incredible to pay off because they're all so cheap. I mentioned, I think we did a segment on like which round 16 to 18 guys are you drafting right now. That was like a month ago. And Rodgers was my answer for that because at the time it was before he signed and everybody was a little worried. And it's like, man, I think he's going to play and be fine at his cost. He goes a little earlier now, but it's still not going to break the bank, obviously. So I'm drafting a lot of him.
You can push your room.
I'm drafting a lot of him as my quarterback 3, and that sounds gross. But because you can tack on a Jeremy Bernard, Pat Freiermuth is right now showing up as top 3 in my exposures at tight end, and it's because of the cost. I just think it's a good value stack. So I'm with you. If you are worried about stacking, you don't even have to start this stack technically until you get to like Michael Pittman. You know, like if you miss out on the running backs or DK Metcalf, I'm fine coming back with Rodgers super late.
Okay. I felt so gross putting that in the doc, but you seem to be okay with it. All right. We're going to finish out the episode because this is the portion where you get to talk about the Titans again.
I just had to bring it up one more time, man. I hope this will be the last time. But yeah, when you're thinking about the team, obviously Carnell Tate goes a little bit earlier. Tony Pollard, nobody really wants to draft. It's like, I'll draft him.
I will never draft him.
Oh, you're going to miss out, buddy. When you have a chance to draft the RB24 at RB30 cost, Kyle, you have to do it. The other options, though, is really where it comes down to. And it kind of starts with Wandale, where it's like, okay, I don't have a stack set up. I can kind of set up a Cam Ward back stack here with somebody like Wandale. And then because nobody really goes before Cam Ward outside of those top 3 guys, you can tack on the RB2 later, whether that's Tajay Spears, Nicholas Singleton. If you wanted to take Gunnar Helm, I think he's fine as a tight end 3 for your roster. And then I know Calvin Ridley is older and banged up and injured, but I still think he's going to play in 3 wide receiver sets across from Carnell Tate with Wandale in the slot. And at his cost, give me 3 to 5 spike weeks, and hopefully they're in the right weeks for you. And he likely will be a piece that is a helpful advance rate, especially on your Cam Ward team. So I do think this is one of those teams that could fit value stack or the, oh crap, I'm out of stacking options team. But I'm definitely taking a decent amount of these guys.
Yeah, I was looking at last year how many rosters were stacked with Calvin Ridley and Cam Ward. This year, it's going to be way down there. Like, it's just not going to happen. So the value, it's an oh crap value is what it is.
There you go.
All right. That's going to do it for this episode. Betz and I are going to keep talking best ball all throughout the summer. Make sure you check out all of our rankings, ultimatedraftkit.com, and on the app. Tell everyone goodbye.
Man, what a weekend ahead we have, Kyle. We get to draft Steelers, Titans, and fade the Super Bowl favorites. I mean, this is a winning strategy in 2026. We'll be back next week to talk more best ball with you guys. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the drafts. Good luck, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast. Don't forget to visit us on the web at thefantasyfootballers.com.
Why have we asked our contractor we found on Angie.com to be our kids' legal guardian? Because he took such good care when redoing our basement that we knew we could trust him to care for our kids.
We only met a month ago. Angie, the one you trust to find the ones you trust. Find pros for all your home projects at Angie.com.
Traditional home security only alerts you after a break-in, and that's too late. Simply Safe is changing that.
Stop. This is Simply Safe. Police are on the way.
We don't just alert, we stop crime before it starts. Simply Safe, plan starting around $1 a day. Save 50% on your new system with professional monitoring at simplysafe.com/SXM or with promo code SXM.
Outdoor deterrence requires a Simply Safe Active Guard outdoor protection plan starting at $49.99 a month. Visit simplysafe.com/licenses for alarm license information. Tennessee 2012.